I don't know if you've heard this yet, this year or not. Maybe I'm the first one to say it to you. But Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas! Can you believe it? We're saying this already? Another holiday season is upon us. We have had Thanksgiving. That's come and gone. Black Friday was yesterday, the official start to the Christmas season. I saw many of you last night at our tree lighting event here in Parker. That really, for me, is like the kickoff to the holiday season each year. But what does that do for you emotionally to realize that we're saying Merry Christmas again, that we have again entered into yet another holiday season? You know, all of us, we have these different scope of emotions that we feel about the holidays. Many of us, perhaps most of us, love the holidays. It's for many, the favorite part of our year. For many, it's the most painful part of the year. Like Joanne was just praying, maybe we lost somebody and this is the first Christmas without them, or maybe we lost someone at Christmas and every Christmas is just a reminder. For many of us, we're somewhere in between, we approach the holiday season with a bit of apprehension, not really, some joy and some level of discomfort. I don't know where you are, but Christmas is one of those holidays that bring out that whole range of emotions and feelings and responses in people. I'm one of those who leans toward loving it, because there's so much I love about the holiday season. I love the change of pace. I love the traditions that we have as a culture, so many of them. I love the traditions we have in our home. Every Christmas season we have to watch It's a Wonderful Life, and every year I cry when we get to the end and they're singing Old Lang Syne. I love that part of Christmas. I love being with family. I love seeing friends that maybe I don't see at other parts of the year. I love seeing a lot of your families that kind of come around the holiday season. We only see them around the holidays. That's awesome. I love that about Christmas. I love being the fact that people seem to be a little warmer and more friendly this time of year. Maybe just a little bit more during this time of year than at other times. I love being reminded of the incarnation, the amazing, mind-boggling truth that the God of the universe would descend to become a single-cell organism embedded into the womb of a teenager in a barn. That just blows my mind. And I love being reminded of that at Christmas. Now, on the other hand, there's a lot about this holiday that I personally could do without. Consumerism and the Santa Claus and unrealistic expectations of being everywhere at the same time, or of forgetting someone to get that gift for because I'm going to hurt their feelings, and maybe I should have gotten them a gift and I didn't get them a gift, and it just spaced my mind, and I'm kind of worried about that. Or having to write a card with an update on my life to every person I've ever met. Those kind of expectations that we kind of put on ourselves at Christmas. And more than that, every Christmas I am reminded of my own sinful heart and selfishness when I have expectations go unmet. And then I'm kind of cranky and irritable. I'm like, why is that? Well, it's because I didn't get what I wanted, or this didn't go the way I planned. And it's just like this reminder that there is this kind of ugly underbelly to the celebration of Christmas as well. And some of us dread that. And most of us are kind of faced with some kind of a tension, internal confusion every year, because we talk about the Christmas story and we read the Christmas story. Maybe we read Luke 2 or Matthew 2, and we read about how the first Christmas was celebrated and what it stood for, and the whole truth of God becoming man and putting on human flesh, and how the original celebrators of Christmas celebrated, right? And then we compare that to how we celebrate the holiday today, 2,000 years later, many of the traditions that we have so many shopping days left until Christmas. And we kind of wonder, how do I reconcile these two things, this original celebration of Christmas 2,000 years ago and everything it stood for, and how we celebrate the holiday today? How do we reconcile that? Are we talking about the same thing? 2,000 years ago, Christmas forever changed the world. Nothing has been the same since that first Christmas 2,000 years ago. That God not only would come and be one of us, but how he came to be with us forever changed the world. Why he came to be with us forever changed the world. And the question we're going to be asking ourselves for the next 4 weeks is, can Christmas still change the world? Can how we celebrate Christmas still change the world? Today we begin a journey with a journey that this is our 8th year on it together, a journey that we join with hundreds, if not thousands, of churches across the country. we're seeking a counterculture, Bible-based, worship-infused, Jesus-focused, deeply meaningful Christmas season. And we call it, Advent conspiracy. Advent conspiracy. Advent is a word that's familiar to Adventists, right? It's a word that means coming or appearing, and it speaks of the first coming of Jesus, that first coming 2,000 years ago when he came as a baby in Bethlehem. Many people call this the Advent season because it's a season when Jesus came or appeared that first time. And we use the word conspiracy because this is an attempt to kind of cause a counterculture, revolutionary way of looking at and celebrating Christmas that would really bring change and transformation, not only to us, not only to our community, but to the entire planet. That this would spread across the planet. Maybe we could begin to change the way we view and celebrate Christmas. And what we're looking at for the next 4 weeks, these 4 elements are the ingredients of what we think it takes to have this conspiracy, this counterculture conspiracy, that we would, number one, worship fully during the Christmas season. That would be all about worship. That we would spend less. That we would give more. And that we would love all. That we would worship fully, spend a little less, so that we could give a little more, and that we could love all. And so I'm just wondering, would you right now, at the beginning of this Christmas season, just make a commitment to yourself that you would be on this journey for the next 5 weeks leading up to Christmas? Not just that you would be here on Sabbath morning to kind of process these messages or this content, which I certainly hope that you will do that you will commit during the holiday season to worship fully, to worship with your community, to prioritize the gathering together on Sabbath morning. But more than that, in just the way that we celebrate this holiday outside of church, that it would just be infused with the meaning of a God who would become a human and dwell among us. And because Christmas 2,000 years ago all started with worship, that's where we have to begin today. By talking about worship, and what does worship have to do with Christmas? And it really starts with this one question. And I want to ask you to grapple with this one question this morning. And I don't know what it's going to do for you, but here it is. What do you worship at Christmas? Because Christmas is all about worship to begin with, we have to answer this question if we're going to kind of come to a real meaningful celebration of worship today. What do you worship at Christmas? Now, we all know the right answer, right? If this is like a multiple choice question on a quiz, we're going to get this one right? C, Jesus, right? We worship Jesus at Christmas, right? But is that reality? Do we really worship Jesus at Christmas? Maybe we some here, some there, but is that really who we're worshiping? Because we could tell who or what we worship based on how we spend our time, how we spend our resources, how we spend our energy, what gets the most of our attention. That's kind of what determines what we worship. And so the question is, what do I worship at Christmas? What is getting the most of my time, the best of my energy, the best of my resources as I celebrate this holiday? There are really 2 very different stories being told every Christmas, right? And both of them are love stories. And both of them are love stories that lead to worship. The first love story is familiar to all of us living where we do. It is a love story that would lead us as Americans to spend $450 billion on stuff for one another every Christmas. $450 billion. This first love story is what we would call consumerism. Right? It is the story that would lead a person to getting a new laptop when their old laptop works just fine. Right? It's a love story that would lead me to go and buy a new jacket, even though I have a ski jacket and 2 raincoats and 3 windbreakers and 2 sports coats and various other coats in my closet. It's that love story that would lead me to do that. It's a love story that kind of creates these frenzied mob-like shopping experiences on Black Friday that would lead to injuries and shootings over stuff. I mean, Black Friday is very clearly a Christmas worship experience. People lining up at the door at 4 a.m. in the morning with a buzz of excitement about what is about to happen. It's a weird love story, yes, but it is a love story all the same. And let me just tell you right up front that I am not standing here as like outside of this issue, talking to people inside the issue. I am not up here on my high horse, like I'm above consumerism, and you guys need to get over this, and kind of come to terms with this. I am totally in this, and I could so easily be sucked into consumerism. And I was reminded of this fact again recently, as Kim and I we were celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary. We were on a cruise, and it was a day at sea. And if you've ever been on a cruise, the days at sea, you don't really have anything to do. You just kind of relax. And the ship, they want to get your attention, and they want to get your money. And so they try to sell you all kinds of things that you don't need on that day at sea because they have a captive audience. And so they're selling all kinds of things, and they're having all kinds of sale on the ship. And this particular day at sea, they're going to have the famous, if you've been on a cruise, you've probably seen this, the famous watch set sale. Right? So they put all these watch sets on sale. You got the watch and the pen set, and the watch and the wallet set, and the watch and the business card holder set. And they're all for $25, and they're nicely packaged in these elegant-looking boxes, and they put them out, hundreds of them, on these long tables for you to come and look at. But there's a rope around the table because you can't get at the table until the sale begins. But people begin to gather hours before the sale begins to get their $25 watch set, and they'll look and they'll find the watch set that they want, and then they'll just camp out in that spot so that when the rope comes down, they could pounce on their $25 watch set. Well, we had seen these before. We had even taken place in these before. And so Kim and I, as a day at sea, we're relaxing. We're like, hey, let's go watch the Malie at the watch sale, right? So we were going to go, and we were going to sit above this, and we found a perch on a balcony overlooking the watch set table. And we were going to look down from our pious perch at these people as they go through their rugby scrum, as they're falling over each other trying to get at their $25 watch set. So we got something hot to drink. We got a comfortable chair, and we're sitting there, and it's 40 minutes to go, but we got nowhere to go, nothing to do. We're just sitting there talking, enjoying our time, and people continue to come and come. Pretty soon, about 10 minutes before this thing starts, there's hundreds of people around this big, long table. They're 6, 7 deep, and they're not losing eye contact with the watch set that they want. They're ready for the rope to come down. And the whole time this is going on, the guys who are in charge of the watch set, they're giving out these raffle tickets because, they want people to stay until the watch set starts. And a minute before the watch set sale starts, they're going to read out one lucky winner, and they're going to win something, so they're giving out these raffle tickets. So about just a few minutes before the watch sale starts, I'm like, well, I'm sitting here. I might as well at least go get a raffle ticket, right? So I go down, I get my raffle ticket, I go back up, I sit down on my pious perch above all of the consumers, and I wait. And about a minute before the watch sale starts, they take the drawing of the lucky winner, and out of all those hundreds of people, who do you suppose won? Lucky me, I won, right? So I just saunter down to where the watch sale is going to be. I'm like, what did I win? And he says, you get to pick anything from that table you want. And so in just a minute, I went from being an observer of the ugliness of consumerism to being in the middle of it. Out of my way, I've got a watch to get at, right? So it's just so easy to get sucked in. I still have this watch to this day. And every time I look at it, if it's still telling time, I'm like, that's a victory right there. I got a watch. But it's so easy just to get sucked in, to go from observer or critic of consumerism to just being in the heart of it and being controlled by it. But we need to understand consumerism is not just a cultural value. It is a religion because it promises the same things religion promises us. Consumerism promises transcendence. It promises to transcend us above the circumstances of our lives, to transcend us above the physical things that are holding us down. In our culture, buying stuff in many ways is a spiritual experience. Just watch this commercial and tell me what you think they're selling.
We don't read and write poetry because it's cute. We read and write poetry because we are members of the human race, and the human race is filled with passion. Medicine, law, business, engineering, these are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life. But poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what we stay alive for. quote from Whitman, "O me, O life of the questions of these recurring, of the endless trains of the faithless, of cities filled with the foolish. What good amid these, O me, O life? Answer that you are here, that life exists, and identity. That the powerful play goes on, and you may contribute a verse. That the powerful play goes on, and you may contribute a verse. What will your verse be?"
Okay, I've received no endorsements from Apple or anything. I'm not getting any in return. But so what is this commercial selling? We could say, well, iPads. I think it's more than that. Technology? I think it's selling more than that. The commercial is selling life. Not just life, abundant life. The thing that Jesus came to bring us, that's what this commercial is offering us. You don't need Jesus. Just get an Apple iPad. You're going to be fine. You're going to experience life to its fullest, right? I mean, if I've heard it said like this: if buying a new car is just about transportation, we would just go to the car lot and say, give me the cheapest car that you have that's going to get me from point A to point B. That's all I need, right? But that's not what we do, is it? We go to buy our car and we research it very carefully because we want it to match or to at least help us transcend our identity, to give us a sense of comfort, a sense of identity and of purpose and of security. It's a statement of who I am to be able to own that particular car. We don't just buy any drink. We want the bottle that is endorsed by the right athlete. I want the coffee cup that comes from the most elite coffee shop in town, right? Because it's giving me a sense of identity. The clothing we wear promises to transcend us above our current circumstances. I remember watching another commercial with a friend of mine, and it was a shoe commercial, Reebok, I believe. And in this commercial was a woman, attractive woman, dressed in very tight-fitting clothes and shoes. And the commercial continued to focus on her Reebok shoes and then her very tight-fitting, finely contoured figure. And the friend I was with watching the commercial, who was a female, said, "That's just disgusting. They're selling shoes with sex." And I said, well, that's probably somewhat true, but you have to remember they're marketing to women, right? And because they're marketing to women, what they're saying is that if you buy those shoes, you would, or at least could, have a figure like that, right? Those shoes would allow you to transcend your current body type, and you can end up looking like this person if you just own the right shoes. The stuff we buy isn't just stuff. It is stuff that is infused with promises. Status, comfort, promises, luxury, identity. Make me physically fit. Make me attractive. Make me secure. Give me joy. We wake up in the morning and we wonder, why am I so happy today? Why am I in such a good mood? Oh, it's because I have a new outfit to wear today. Right? Oh, I get new shoes. I have new socks, whatever it may be. Or I remember, it's been 6 years for me, but I still remember well the last time I bought a new for me car. Right? In 2010, I bought a 2004, but it was new for me, and I couldn't wait to get into the car and drive around town. I was looking for excuses to just go out for a drive because it just gave me a kind of a buzz to be in that car. I had this new sense of identity, and I knew that buzz would wear off. Right? We all know the buzz is going to wear off, but that's okay because there's always the next purchase that we can make that's going to kind of give us the next buzz and the next buzz. You see, this is the foundation that keeps our consumer culture going. There is no end-all, completely satisfying purchase that any of us ever makes. Right? There's not going to be that one final purchase, now I never need to buy anything else to make me feel good about myself or whatever, because that doesn't exist. And this reality leads us to the spirit of discontent that fuels our consumer culture, that I always need. I always want that next fix, that next buzz that's going to feed me. And in this culture of consumerism, in this religion of stuff, then Christmas has to be the happiest time of the year, right? Because this is the time that we give and get the most stuff of any other time during the year. And so what a story to enter. Because we're going to get and give all kinds of stuff. We're going to be satisfied because this year we're really going to give the perfect gift. We're really going to get what we've always wanted, and maybe we will, and that happiness will last for a little while, but then that's going to wear off. But more realistically, what's going to happen is if we're kind of leaning into that story, into the story, we're going to get to the end of the holiday season, and we're going to feel empty, and we're going to feel cheated Because this love story cannot give life, right? This love story is a lie. But there is another way, another story to be told. And it's not being told by the shopping malls or by the Black Friday ads. They're not selling it. It's the story of a God who would invade our world out of love, to become one of us. Now, this is a love story. God lovingly and just carefully crafting a planet for us. And it's a crowning act of creation. He stoops into the dirt and he forms a man out of his own hands, a man formed in his own image, and then he breathes into the man. And then out of the man he forms woman, and he looks at the two of them, and he steps back and he sees everything that he's made, and he says, it's perfect. It is very good. But that's not enough for us. We want more. We want more than what God wants to give us. Therefore, we rebel against him, and we do the one thing he says not to do, and we throw his perfect creation into chaos, and no longer are things perfect anymore. Now, because of what we've done out of our greed and selfishness and wanting to put ourselves on the throne of our own world and our own hearts, now there is hunger and injustice, abuse and war and murder and disease and pain and death. They all enter the world because of what we have done. But God steps back and he says, you know what? That's not the end of your story. At the very beginning, he makes a promise that I'm not going to leave you alone to suffer the consequences of your own rebellion and your own sin, but I'm going to enter into your story. At some point, I'm going to come and become one of you. I'm going to take on your flesh. I am going to live among you as one of the lowest among you. I'm going to become a servant. And not only am I going to become a servant, I'm going to take all of your sin upon me, and I'm going to die in your place so that you can have life, eternal life, abundant life. And when he did that, when he fulfilled that promise on that Christmas 2,000 years ago, he forever changed our story. I can't even think of the moment in heaven when it was announced what was going to happen. You're going to become a what? I mean, what would that be like, that incalculable distance, that moment that God gives up his godness in heaven, steps off of his throne, leaves heaven, descends this incalculable distance from heaven to a single-cell embryo organism to be implanted in the womb of an unmarried teenager living in Palestine. I mean, what must have been going on in heaven when they heard this plan? And again, what is amazing is not only that he came, but how he came, that God was willing to come as one of us. He came to save us from what we did to ourselves. He came to do for us what we could never do for ourselves. Again, to give us life, to give us satisfaction, to give us abundance, to give us eternity. This is the best story. This is the story that really changes all other stories, including ours. Just look at how each person who kind of entered that original story responded. How they just naturally reacted when they realized what was going on. First of all, think about Mary. Mary was one of the first ones involved in the story. She was one of the most impacted ones by the story, but she has the angel Gabriel come to her and tell her, you are going to be the mother of God's son. And she reacts by saying, well, how in the world can this be? I'm a virgin. And the angel explains, the Holy Spirit's going to descend on you. It's all going to work out. God could do anything. Just trust me. It's going to be fine. And what is Mary's natural response? In the book of Luke, we have Mary's song, known as the Magnificat, that's still recorded today, this beautiful song of worship and praise, where she just, out of a heart overflowing, just responds to a God who would stoop so low, who would pick up someone like her to be the mother of God's child, who would send his own son into this world to be one of us. She can't do anything but worship. She responds by worshiping. Or next we get to the shepherds. The shepherds are in Luke chapter 2. Luke talks about them. We read that they're living out in the fields, they're taking care of their sheep. Shepherds at the time are considered to be like the lowest of the low. They're like the dirty, the outcasts of society. But the angels come to them as a sign of kind of the gospel. This is for everyone. And the angels appear to the shepherds and announce to these lowly shepherds the amazing thing that had happened. Verse 10 says, do not be afraid. I bring you good news of great joy that will be for all people. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is Christ the Lord. This will be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in cloths and lying in a manger." And then what do the angels do? Suddenly, a great company of the heavenly host appeared with the angel, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace to men on whom his favor rests." The angels worship. What do the shepherds do? Well, after they hear about this, they go to Bethlehem. And amazingly, they find everything just like the angels described. There's Mary, there's Joseph, there's Jesus. They leave that place. They begin to go everywhere and tell everyone what had happened. God has come into our story. He has fulfilled this promise that he made to us at the very beginning when we sinned and rebelled against him. And it says everyone was filled with awe. Everyone was amazed. Then they returned to the place where Mary and Joseph and Jesus are. And what do? They praise. They worship. Matthew tells the story of the Magi from the east. Matthew chapter 2. The Magi had been studying the ancient scrolls, the ancient prophecies. They had been studying the stars. They knew something significant was happening. A king was going to be born to the Jews. That this was going to be this fulfillment of this ancient prophecy made to Daniel 600 years before. And they travel at great expense to themselves. And they eventually come to the place, to Bethlehem, where they find Mary and Joseph and Jesus. And this is how Matthew records it. He says, when they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshiped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold and of incense and of myrrh. These Magi respond to the Advent story by seeking him out, and when they find him, they worship him. They bow down before him with their body posture. They show that he is their king. And more than that, they then give these expensive gifts to this poor family, gifts that would then be used to save the life of this child, to carry him off to Egypt when the Romans came and killed all of the babies in Bethlehem. We could go to the story in Luke chapter 2 when Jesus was presented at the temple. He was 8 days old, and these two temple workers, Anna and Simeon, who have been waiting for him all of their lives, they supernaturally know this is the Messiah. This is the fulfillment of the promise. This is God in the flesh. This is God come to dwell among us. And how do they respond to the fact that God was there, that the Messiah had come, that this was the first Christmas? They worship. They worship. So the question is, how do we respond to the truth of the story? How do we respond to this love story? That Christ has come to be one of us, that he has forever changed our story out of his sacrifice for us. And that takes us back to the question, what might it look like for us to worship fully this Christmas season? You know, could we just say, you know what, it's Christmas. God has become man. Because of what has happened, I'm going to worship fully. When I come together on Sabbath morning to worship with my worshiping community, I'm going to come ready to worship. I'm going to come with heart full of gratitude. I'm going to come knowing what God has done for me, and I'm going to give him everything that I have. I'm going to sing as loud as I could sing. I'm going to demonstrate with my body posture that he is my king. You know, I'm going to prioritize the gathering together like a Mary. Or maybe like the shepherds, we could be the kind of people who are talking about what happened at Christmas among the people that we work with, among the people in the community. Do you know what the season is about? I mean, the incarnation, isn't that just mind-blowing that God would become a single-cell organism, a fetus? And, you know, that he would come and be a human, that he would, like, save us that way? Isn't that awesome? That we could be like the shepherds and worship him at Christmas by just kind of talking about the reality of what this is about. Or maybe we could be more like the Magi. Again, not only worshiping through body posture and travel or whatever that looks like, but also by giving great gifts to the poorest of the poor, to those that Jesus came to lift up in his first coming. Worship this holiday might look a lot like it looked 2,000 years ago if we just kind of re-enter the story and allow it to drive how it is we celebrate. And so let me ask you again, what do you worship at Christmas? God has drawn near. He's given up heaven, became an embryo and then a fetus, and then eventually was born as a helpless baby to a teenage girl in a barn. This is what we celebrate at Christmas. If you were there, how would you respond? Just put yourself in that stable or the cave or whatever it was And all of a sudden it dawns on you the reality. Thousands of years of promises are being fulfilled in this child. A life of hopelessness is being redeemed in this child. Because of this child, I'm going to have hope beyond the grave. I could live forever because he has come. Because he has come, that means God loves me. It means that I have value and that I have identity in God, who would love me this much to send me this great gift. How would you respond to that if you were there in that moment? I think let me just be very clear what we're not saying here today or in this series. We're not saying that we don't buy things for one another at Christmas. This is not an anti-buying or giving gifts message. We're not saying that you should feel guilty for going on Amazon Cyber Monday and picking up some great deals. That's not what this is about. This is not anti-give gifts to one another. So please don't take that behavior underground. Oh, we can't talk about giving gifts here. This isn't a bah humbug Christmas message. No. It's about keeping the main thing in the midst of it. It's about knowing where our identity and our joy come from, not from the stuff. It's from him, right? It's about entering into a love story about a God who wouldn't leave me alone or lost, but he would enter into my story because he cared that much about me. It's about not being deceived and duped by a culture that's going to continually try to pull me into thinking that stuff is what gives me my identity, and stuff is what's going to give me my sense of fulfillment and abundance of life. It's about not evaluating or equating stuff with happiness or with love this holiday season. It's about pulling back and being intentional about how we celebrate and infusing it with meaning. And so if we're going to make this happen, we just need to do a couple things maybe to start. And let me just make a couple suggestions. First of all, I think we need to be willing just to be intentional, right? Because we live in a culture that's just going to constantly suck us into the things that aren't quite as meaningful this Christmas as what could be. And so we need to be very, very intentional. And what that means is, again, what if you were to think of one word that would define your holiday season? That one thing that you want to receive, that you want to exhibit this holiday season more than anything. What if you were to pick one word and just kind of focus on that throughout the celebration of this holiday? What would that one word be for you? Think about that. What do you need in your life right now? What do you want to give in your life right now? What do you want to exhibit? Maybe for some people, the word would be joy. I want joy just to exude from me this holiday season. I want to keep it all about that. Maybe it would be presence. Not the E-N-T-S, but the E-N-C-E, right? That I would be present at every moment, that I would be cognizant of God's presence in my life, that wherever I am, whether at the mall or at the party or on my own, that I'm aware that God is with me, or that I'm with the people around me. Or maybe the word would be glorify or peace. What would your word be? How do you need to be intentional? What do you need to do to make sure that you're moving that direction? What are the obstacles that would keep you from doing that? And what would you need to do to remove those obstacles this Christmas season? And more than just being intentional, I also think we need to make this a communal experience if this is really going to be meaningful. We can't just do this on our own. We need to know that we're doing it together. And so let me just encourage you to take a step closer into community. What does that look like? Well, that could mean prioritizing your small group over the next several weeks as we kind of process these subjects and talk about these subjects, about what it looks like to celebrate Christmas in a meaningful way, and hearing from one another as we share ideas about what we're doing differently, or maybe what we're cutting out or not doing this year. But also, in addition to our small groups, also we have a Facebook page, Newday Network. And I'm going to really encourage you, would you get on there regularly throughout the next 5 weeks and just share kind of what you're doing differently this holiday season as you seek to infuse your celebration with meaning? What's your one word? Why did you pick it? What are you doing to kind of enact that one word in your life? Put that on our Facebook page. Let other people see what your one word is. Or talk about, again, what you're doing differently, what you're not going to do, what you're adding to your celebration. And we'll have different questions throughout the season to kind of spark that. But kind of check in on that Facebook page. If you're not a member, kind of go to search for Newday Network on Facebook, and we'll add you to that group. One of the things we've already put on there is we're looking for one final cause around the world to give our Christmas offering to, and we're wanting to get input into that. We've had, I think, one response so far. So if you know of causes that move your heart and you'd like to say, man, I want our church to do something about Syrian refugees or the water crisis in Afghanistan or whatever it may be, submit your cause, and maybe we'll be giving significantly to that this Christmas. We need to worship fully. And let's stop talking about it. Why don't we enter into it, just a time of response to God, this amazing God who would not leave us in our sin, but would enter into our story out of love, who would come and be one of us. Let's worship him with all that we are, starting right now for the next 5 weeks through Christmas.